I was sorting through quarterly reports in my Chicago loft when my phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in months. My brother Marcus. The screen glowed in the dim evening light, and something in my chest tightened before I even answered. Family calls after long silences never bring good news. Natalie. His voice came through tight and rehearsed. We need to talk about Grandma Ruth's estate. My name is Natalie Chin, and for 32 years, I've been the family placeholder. The dependable one. The one who asked for nothing because nothing was ever offered. I grew up in a brick townhouse on Chicago's northwest side, where my mother Diane ran a small accounting firm, and my father Robert worked construction management. From every angle, we appeared functional, maybe even close. But appearances have a way of hiding the architecture beneath. Marcus was the golden investment. 3 years younger, infinitely more celebrated. When I graduated high school with honors and a scholarship offered to Northwestern, my parents took me to dinner at a chain restaurant. When Marcus made junior varsity basketball, they threw a backyard party and invited half the neighborhood. The difference wasn't loud. It was constant, like background noise you stop hearing until someone finally turns it off. What about the estate? I asked, already sensing the shape of what was coming. Dad thinks we should discuss distribution. There are some complications. Complications. That word always preceded something being taken from me. I'll be there Saturday, I said, and hung up before he could script the conversation further. Grandma Ruth had been my anchor. While my parents measured love in terms of performance and convenience, she simply saw me. Really saw me. She was the one who stayed up with me during college finals, who sent care packages when I was building my career from nothing, who showed up to my apartment with soup when I had the flu and couldn't afford to miss work. When she passed 3 months ago, I grieved alone in my apartment, crying into my pillow because I'd lost the only person who loved me without conditions. My parents had arranged a small service. Efficient, controlled, over quickly. They never asked how I was doing. They never do. Saturday arrived cold and gray, the kind of Chicago morning where the wind cuts through your coat and finds your bones. I pulled up to my childhood home. That same brick facade that held so many carefully managed disappointments. Inside, the living room looked staged, like they were preparing for a performance rather than a family discussion. Diane sat in the armchair she'd claimed decades ago, reading glasses perched on her nose. Robert stood by the window, hands in his pockets. Marcus occupied the couch, looking anywhere but at me. Thanks for coming, Diane said, as if I'd had a choice. Robert cleared his throat. Your grandmother left behind more than we initially understood. Property assets, savings accounts, some investments. The attorney walked us through everything last week. And? I asked. And, Diane continued, folding her hands with practiced precision, we need to discuss how to handle the distribution fairly. That word, fairly, in my family, fair had always meant whatever served them best. Grandma Ruth left a will, I said slowly. Doesn't that clarify things? Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Robert exchanged a glance with Diane. The will does specify certain distributions, Robert admitted. But we feel some adjustments would be more appropriate given current circumstances. My pulse quickened. What kind of adjustments? Diane leaned forward. Your grandmother left the lake cottage to you. She left the investment portfolio split between you and Marcus. But she also specified that her savings, approximately $120,000, should go entirely to you. The room seemed to contract. She did. She did, Robert confirmed, his tone clipped. But Natalie, you have to understand, that seems disproportionate. Disproportionate? I repeated, the word strange on my tongue. Marcus is planning to propose to Vanessa, Diane explained, as if this were relevant. They'll need help with a down payment. A wedding. Starting a life together. You're already established. You have your career, your condo. It seems only reasonable that you'd share some of that inheritance to help your brother when he needs it. There it was. The ask, wrapped in family obligation, and coded in the assumption that my success existed to subsidize their favorite. Let me make sure I understand, I said, keeping my voice level. Grandma Ruth specifically left me that money. In her will. With her attorney. And you want me to give a significant portion to Marcus because he's getting engaged. Not give, Robert corrected. Share. It's what family does. Family, I said quietly, feeling something crack open inside me, is an interesting word coming from you. Diane frowned. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I continued, that when I needed help with textbooks sophomore year, you told me to get another job. When my car broke down and I couldn't afford repairs, you said I should have saved better. When I asked if I could move home for 3 months after graduation to save for a security deposit, you said I needed to learn independence. That was different, Robert said stiffly. How? You were capable. You've always been capable. We knew you'd figure it out. But Marcus isn't. I asked. Is that what you're saying? I walked to the door, my hand on the knob, when Robert called out. Your grandmother wouldn't want this division. I turned back. You're right. She wouldn't. That's why she tried to balance the scales before she died. You're angry because she saw what you refused to. The calls started that evening. First Marcus, apologetic but still asking. Then my Aunt Lorraine, confused and concerned about family unity. Then my cousin Derek, who barely knew me but had strong opinions about inheritance etiquette. Each call carried the same undertone. How dare you keep something that could benefit the family? But none of them asked. How did we fail you so completely that a grandmother felt compelled to correct us from beyond the grave? By Tuesday, I'd blocked 6 numbers. On Wednesday, Diane sent an email. Subject line. Reconsidering. Natalie, we've discussed this further and believe a compromise is possible. We're willing to accept $15,000 instead of $25,000. This demonstrates our flexibility and commitment to family harmony. Please respond by Friday. I stared at the screen, feeling the old instinct to comply, to smooth things over, to make myself smaller so they could remain comfortable. Then I deleted it. 2 weeks later, I met with Grandma Ruth's attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Caroline who'd handled the estate with quiet competence. Your family has been persistent, she said, sliding a folder across her desk. I'm aware. Your grandmother anticipated this. She opened the folder, revealing a handwritten letter on cream stationery. She asked me to give you this if anyone contested her wishes. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. Dearest Natalie, if you're reading this, it means they've come asking. I'm not surprised. Your parents have spent your entire life believing that fairness means equal outcomes, regardless of equal effort or equal love. I'm leaving you the cottage, the savings, and the majority of investments because you earned them. Not through some cosmic entitlement, but because you survived their indifference and built something beautiful anyway. Marcus will be fine. He always is, because they've always made sure of it. But you, my darling girl, you've had to make sure of yourself. Don't let them rewrite this. Don't let them convince you that my love was a mistake. You were never the problem. You were always enough. Asterisk all my love. Grandma Ruth. I read it 3 times, tears blurring the words. Caroline waited patiently. She was very clear about her intentions. She was, I whispered. What would you like to do? I folded the letter carefully, tucking it back into my purse. Honor them. The cottage sat on the edge of Lake Geneva, a small A-frame with a wraparound porch and a view that stretched into forever. I'd spent childhood summers there, reading on the dock while Marcus played basketball in the driveway. Back then, it had seemed like neutral territory, a place where the usual hierarchies didn't apply. Now it was mine. I spent the first weekend cleaning, sorting through Grandma Ruth's belongings, finding notes she'd left in books and drawers. Little messages. You matter. Don't shrink. Stay strong. On Sunday evening, as the sun set over the water, my phone buzzed. Marcus. I almost didn't answer. But something, maybe curiosity, maybe exhaustion, made me pick up. Hey, he said quietly. Hey, I'm at the cottage. Can I come in? I opened the door. He stood on the porch, hands shoved into his jacket pockets, looking younger than his 29 years. I'm not here to ask for money, he said quickly. Then why are you here? He stepped inside, glancing around at the familiar space. To apologize. I waited. I didn't realize, he continued, voice rough. I mean, I knew they were harder on you, but I thought that was just I don't know how families work. Oldest kid gets the tough love, youngest gets coddled. I thought it balanced out somehow. It didn't. I know. He sat on the old couch, running a hand through his hair. Vanessa pointed it out. She asked why Mom and Dad paid for my school but not yours. I made excuses. Then she asked why they expected you to fund my down payment when they never funded yours. And I didn't have an answer. Most people don't, I said, until someone forces them to look. I've been thinking about all of it. Every time they cheered for me and barely noticed you. Every time they bailed me out and told you to handle it yourself. I benefited from that, Nat. I'm complicit. Yes, I said simply. You are. He nodded, accepting it. I don't expect you to forgive me right now, but I wanted you to know I see it. Finally. We sat in silence, the weight of years settling between us. I'm keeping the inheritance, I said. I know. You should. And I'm not attending family events for a while. I understand. He stood, moving toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Grandma Ruth was right. You did survive them. And you're doing better than any of us. After he left, I stood on the porch, watching the last light fade from the sky. The cottage, the money, the investments, they weren't just assets. They were validation. Proof that someone saw my struggle and decided it mattered. 3 months later, my parents requested a meeting. We met at a neutral coffee shop downtown, the kind of place with exposed brick and expensive espresso. They looked older, smaller somehow. We've been talking, Diane began carefully, with a counselor. I raised an eyebrow. A counselor? Family therapist, Robert clarified. After you cut contact, we started questioning some things. Like what? Like whether we treated you fairly, Diane said, the words clearly difficult. And the answer we're learning is no. We didn't. I sipped my coffee saying nothing. We told ourselves we were teaching you resilience, Robert continued. That we were preparing you for a harder world. But really, we were just failing you. Diane's voice cracked. We were afraid you didn't need us. You were so capable, so self-sufficient. With Marcus, we always knew he needed help. But you figured everything out. And instead of being proud, we resented you for it. The admission hung in the air, raw and unfinished. I did need you, I said quietly. I just learned not to show it. We know, Robert said. And we're sorry. Their apology didn't undo the past. It didn't refund the emotional debt or rewrite my childhood. But it acknowledged the damage. And that was more than I'd expected. I'm willing to rebuild, I said carefully. But on different terms. No more assumptions that my success exists to subsidize anyone else. No more comparisons to Marcus. No more rewriting history to make yourselves comfortable. They agreed. As I walked back to my car, the Chicago wind less cutting than before, I realized something profound. Justice isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. Steady. A will honored, a boundary held, a truth finally spoken that I didn't fund Marcus's down payment. I didn't attend their family gatherings out of obligation. I chose myself, clearly and completely. And somehow, that choice brought all of us closer to something honest. The cottage still sits on Lake Geneva, my refuge when the city gets too loud. The investment portfolio grows steadily. A foundation I'm building for myself. The savings account holds Grandma Ruth's final gift, her last act of love. Some families heal. Some don't. Mine is somewhere in between, stitching itself back together with apologies and effort and space. But I'm no longer waiting for their validation to feel whole, that I found that in the quiet of a summer cottage. In the words of a grandmother who loved me without conditions. In the moment I finally said no and meant it. The inheritance wasn't just money. It was permission. Permission to stop shrinking, stop explaining, stop apologizing for taking up space. And that, more than any dollar amount, was worth fighting for. If this story resonated with you, you're not alone. Sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't what we're given, but what we finally give ourselves. The courage to stand firm in our truth.